So it's the end of the season and I was watching Monday Night Football the other night and Carragher and Neville did their awards for the season, so I'm going to do the same. We got best player, best young player, best signing, best newcomer, best coaching performance, biggest overachievers, biggest underachievers and favourite game. So best player, I can't see any other way how it can't be Phil Foden. I think he has been fantastic this season. I personally thought he might suffer a bit this season and I couldn't really see a position for him with Doku coming in, plus Grealish had a great year last year, and De Bruyne obviously being quality in the midfield. But I think partly due to De Bruyne's injury against Burnley, but also just partly due to his brilliance, Foden has really come into his own. And yes, last year he was still great. However, I think this year, it is his team this season. He has facilitated Haaland even when he's having bad games. And I think what makes a player great, and if they can win the title, because as a recording, it's a few days before the end of the season, that it's the moments within the season that matters. When he scored the screamer against Man United, when he dug City out of a bit of a hole against Brentford, even the other night against Spurs when he outmuscled Romero and somehow got that ball over to De Bruyne to then pass it into Haaland. I mean, all of these things are title-winning moments, and I think Phil Foden has really done that. Best young player, and I mean, what could have been? Cole Palmer. Chelsea, fantastic season he's had. I mean, he scored a lot of penalties, which I think has inflated his stats somewhat, but I mean, if you watch him on the pitch, he is silky smooth. He is so good. His header against Brighton recently was just unreal. And I think he's been basically what Chelsea have been needed, some goals, because for recent years, Chelsea's top goal scorer has been Jorginho, who's been on penalties. But it just shows once a player is given opportunity, and not to say he wasn't getting at Man City, but obviously he's not better than Foden, Grealish, Bernardo Silva. But being Chelsea's main player this season, I think he's been absolutely fantastic. And hoping he gets called up for the Euros this summer. I can't really see how he can't. And I mean, for your first proper full season in the Premier League, to nearly get top scorer against Erling Haaland, I mean, it is incredible. And I think the best moment, and I know it was a deflection, but that winner against United at Stamford Bridge, I mean, that sums up Man United's season basically, but I think Cole Palmer has definitely been the best young player in the league. Best newcomer, and he's only been here for about half a season, but Oliver Glasner for Crystal Palace. The last 6 or 7 games, Crystal Palace have looked like a title charging team. I mean, they went to Anfield and beat Liverpool fairly comfortably, I thought. I didn't think Liverpool had a great game. And he's turned Mateta into somewhat of an R9 regen. He's got Elise playing. I mean, Elise's fantastic, but he's really got him playing again. Eze's playing well. He's put the back three with the wing backs. Tariq Mitchell's getting more joy down the left. And if Palace can keep their main players and also reinvest into the squad, you never know, there might be an outside chance for the UEFA Conference League next year. Coaching performance, and to me, this was the most dominant performance I've seen all season, and that was Arteta versus Newcastle at the Emirates. Yes, Newcastle have struggled with injuries, but I saw that game and it was men against boys. Newcastle could barely get touch in that first half, and yes, they got a consolation goal, and they made a tiny bit of a charge in the back end of the game. However, especially the first half, they could barely touch the ball, and Arsenal really should have been 6 or 7 up early doors. And I think that and a couple more games before that was just Arsenal's, they're back to the best, because they had a bit of a dip in February and January when they lost to Fulham away, but that performance against Newcastle, I think it actually followed the 6-0 against West Ham. Even if they don't win the title, they are an unstoppable team. And away he's playing against Eddie Howe that day, it was fantastic. Overachievers, I thought this was a bit of a tough one because I don't think many people have actually overachieved. I think they've either been where people thought they would be or behind. Probably Aston Villa. I mean, they've got Champions League football, which is fantastic for them. I love to see Aston Villa in the Champions League. It's never been in my lifetime. And yes, Unai Emery has spent a lot of money on that squad. However, he's really got them playing, and I think the end of the season, they've dropped off a bit. It was a shame to see what happened in the Conference League against Olympiacos. But I mean, they're beating Man City, they're beating Arsenal, they drew with Liverpool, so top 3 teams in the league, they've given them a good go in. And again, I think there's clear, easy fixes in that squad, which will carry on pushing them through. I think they need a bit more depth on the wings. I think they need a bit more depth in the midfield because I think it's quite injury prone, and someone to challenge with Ollie Watkins, because I like Duran, but I think they could get someone a bit better than him. But with that squad and the amount of money Villa are able to spend, I think they're going to get done with the PSR rules a bit, so they might have to get rid of like a Jacob Ramsey, for example. World-class manager Unai Emery, and I think they probably have overachieved a bit. I predicted them to get about 6 this season, but I mean, top 4, not too bad. Next, underachievers, and I don't think it can be anyone other than Manchester United. I think they've had, frankly, an embarrassing season. They got bounced out of the Champions League. I know it's a Premier League kind of awards, but they got bounced out of the Champions League in the group stage. They scraped through the FA Cup from probably, what, a fraudulent offside goal with Coventry. Liverpool just completely capitulating and a really easy draw. And they've been awful in the league. I don't know what is going on there, because they've got so many injuries. The squad doesn't seem to be harmonious at all. They can't keep any of the centre-backs fit. It doesn't seem like any of the squad likes Ten Hag. It doesn't seem like Ten Hag likes any of the squad. And I know they think Jim Radcliffe is going to save things, but I mean, it's a complete shambles year after year of United. It's no different. And it's a shame, because you saw them against Arsenal, and I actually thought, despite them losing to Arsenal, they put in a decent account of themselves. But then they go to Selhurst Park the week before that and just get embarrassed. I mean, Casemiro's been in the headlines recently because he just looks like an old man, and frankly, he does look like he needs to retire. But like I say, you could have said Chelsea, you could have said probably Newcastle, could have said a few other teams, but I do think Man United are the biggest underachievers this season. Then my favourite game, and to me it has to be Chelsea versus Man City, Stamford Bridge, 12th of November. It was, as people always like to say, prime Barclays, 4-4, and it was just back and forth. And even Man City play football like it's chess. They were just going gung-ho. And I mean, just seeing Doku, who was on the halfway line, going at, I think it was Reece James every single time. It was a fantastic game. I think it had it all. It had scuffles, it had great goals, it had a few penalties, I believe. It had ex-players scoring against their old clubs in Raheem Sterling. It was in the rain, it was a night game, Stamford Bridge, and I think, unpopular opinion, Stamford Bridge on some of those games has an unbeatable atmosphere when people are smacking the boards and stuff like that. It's fantastic. But yeah, that is my game of the season, and yeah, that's all. I mean, if you like this video, if you could leave a like, if you could comment, if you want to let me know all your awards, that'd be great. And if you could subscribe to the channel, that'd be fantastic. So see you next season.